All right, guys, we are back with another video here. And this one is a book called Principles we're going to go over. And it's actually a business book. This guy, I mean, it's not really a business book. It's kind of a business book, right? Because this guy, Ray Dalio, he's, a billionaire, and he talks about life lessons that he learned. So it's not really about business. It's more about what he's learned throughout his life, right? Just living his life. And he's an older guy. I don't know how old he is. I think he may be in his 60s or something like that. Obviously he's made tons of money. He's a billionaire, and he's just talking about life lessons that he's learned. So let's get right into it. The number one thing: meaningful work and relationships is more important than money. Okay? So meaningful work and relationships is more important than money. This is something he's learned. This is coming straight out of the mouth of a billionaire, right? And I could maybe be remembering this wrong, but he talks about in this book that there was like a study done of happiness. I could be completely wrong on this. This might be from a different book, but a similar concept where there's like a study done with like happiness, and like they talk about like these flashy people that have made a lot of money, and like their happiness levels are somewhat low as compared to, let's say, for example, there was like a small town that was studied where like there was a lot of community and people were really close to each other. They would go to each other's houses, have coffee, have dinner, talk, relax with each other, and like very low incomes. And those people were way happier than, the other group of people that were making all this money and like had everything, that you would imagine would bring happiness, like all the external things. But it was more so the people that were just like, they had their friends that they grew up with, for their whole lives or whatever. They used to go to each other's houses all the time and like this and that. So that group was way happier. And he talks about this, whereas like, a lot of people believe that, once they get all this money, they're going to be so happy. But really in the end, they realize that it's like some sort of meaningful work or some sort of contribution to society that brings more happiness than that, and like just having strong relationships in your life. When he talks about relationships, he's not really talking about a significant other, although that plays a part in it, but just like friends, family, and things of that nature. So I thought that was quite a huge thing, and a thing that I've seen I've read in a lot of different books. So this is not just him talking about this. Number 2, be extremely open-minded and listen to other people's viewpoints, because the goal is to find out what's right, not who's right. Okay? So with this one, a lot of times we get into like these ego battles with people, and we're like, I'm right and you're wrong kind of thing. And we're more focused on who's the right one and who's the wrong one, which human is right, which human is wrong. But really, we should just be focusing on what's right. Okay, who's right is not even a matter. It just doesn't matter at all. Like if we drop our ego, right, then if I'm right or they're right or he's right or she's right, it doesn't matter. We're just all trying to get to what's the right thing. Doesn't matter who came up with the right answer. Let's get straight to the meat of it, right? Like we just want to drop the ego as much as possible in a situation like that. And this is something, I could personally work on. I do have quite a bit of ego, inside myself, but it's important to slowly get to these places where you're like, what? You can admit, I was wrong about that, and you were right. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. And because, we're just trying to figure out what's right. Okay? And once you do that, then you don't stubbornly hold on to your viewpoints, or you don't stubbornly, hold on to ideas that you thought, were right just because it came from you. Okay, so that's another great point he makes in the book. Number 3, which is somewhat tied in with number 2, get many opinions on important things from people you respect and trust before you take action. Now, this could be whether you're looking to start a business, whether you're looking to do anything. Maybe you're looking to take the next 2 years and travel the world. Like, get opinions from people that that you respect and trust. People that are gonna be able to maybe point out some flaws in your plan. Maybe they might add to your plan. Like, you don't necessarily have to listen to them, but it's so important to get feedback from people, because the way we think as humans, like, there's always blind spots where we're not thinking about certain things. We're like focused on a certain something, like maybe impulsively, and then like we don't really know the full consequences of it, or we don't quite understand all the little things that go into it. And once you get feedback, let's say from like 4 or 5 different people, then you have a more clarity on the situation, whatever it is. This goes for anything. He's mainly talking about business, in the book. Let's say you're making like a business decision or something like that. You ask a few people, you're like, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you think of this? And then you get opinions, and then maybe you change your opinion based on that. Maybe you don't. But it's important to really throw that out there and get the opinions of people that you respect and trust. And like in this book, actually, so Ray Dalio runs this whole actually, it's funny. I actually read this book like 3 years ago. So there's a lot of it that I don't remember. It's just the notes of it that I remember, the general concepts. Like when you read a book that long ago, it's hard to remember all the little details. But so he works for this, like he's like the CEO of like this fund, and a lot of people obviously working under him, and they had like a system that I thought was really interesting. It was like a system of like, certain people that can be trusted more than other people, which is like, it's kind of weird. Like, that's not really a way a company works, but it was just like, they had like baseball cards of all the employees, and like how much they could be trusted was graded like from like from like 1 to 10 or whatever. And like, it was based on their past performances and their past, the things that they've done in the workplace. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So main point being, well, like when I read this, third point here, don't just go to anybody and ask, for advice. You want to go to somebody you respect and trust. Okay, there has to be a lot of trust there. There has to be a lot of respect there. It has to be a rational human. So all those things do matter. You don't want to just go to, anybody, on the street and like, hey, like this, tell me your opinion on this. Like, you want it to be somebody that you know very well and that you trust on a deep level. Number 4, this is the last point here in this book. Emotional pain is an important signal that there is something to be learned. Emotional pain is an important signal that there's something to be learned. And if you reflect on your pain well, then you will almost always learn something important. Okay? So if you reflect on your pain well, you will almost always learn something important. So your emotional pain is always telling you something. It's usually telling you that your perception of something is flawed. You have a flawed perception of something. Or maybe, like let's say you have this like overwhelming feeling of like overwhelm. Let's just call it that. You just feel very overwhelmed. You might be viewing things in the wrong way, where you're just like thinking about nonstop, just thinking about all the things you have to get done and making, this mountain way bigger than it needs to be, right? Maybe you're making this mountain way bigger than it needs to be, right? Or you're putting way too much importance on something, or you're way too attached to a certain something that's taking your emotions on a little roller coaster ride. you know. So if you reflect on your emotions and you kind of sit down with them, process them, accept them, and try to understand what's going on there. When you reflect on them a little bit, there's usually something that you're going to learn. Maybe you're putting too much emphasis on a certain something. Maybe you care too much about a certain something. Maybe you're way too attached to a certain something and you need to detach, right? So if you want to know more about actually these roller coaster of emotions and things like that, I have a very good video on this channel. It's called, I think I titled it the Perception Roller Coaster, something like that. I'm pretty sure perception was in the title. So if you search that, you're gonna find this video, and it's absolute gold. Based on emotions and how the emotions go up, down, sideways, you know, and how to kind of, you know, be in a place where your emotions are not just all over the place and you're just like, you know, along for the ride, where, you know, you're in control of your emotions more than your emotions are in control of you, which is quite rare these days to have that. It's like, you know, that first instinct of emotion, usually, you know, we're not going to be in control, or almost like actually always we're not going to be in control of that first instinct of emotion when it comes up. But once that comes up, once a certain emotion comes up, you can relax yourself into it. You don't have to be taken for this crazy ride of, you know, this emotional roller coaster that you never signed up to be on, right? You can actually take control of your emotions, okay? So this is the last point here. So reflect on those emotions, try to understand what's going on, why are you feeling these emotions, but also simultaneously accepting those emotions, because that's the way you're going to get over that emotion, you know, because whatever you resist will persist. We know that. So you have to accept that that emotion is there, that that thought is there, that that feeling is there, and that's okay. You know, be okay with those things being there. But at the same time, you know, you can reflect on them a little bit. You know, logically, what's going on here? Why do I feel this overwhelm? Why do I feel this anxiety? Or whatever. And there may be something to be learned there. There may be a bigger something there, something at the root that you can learn more about and understand, so you can then later, you know, be able to let go of it. Okay. So that's it for Principles by Ray Dalio. Excellent book. Again, every single book that I'm covering on this channel is going to be an excellent book. If it wasn't, I wouldn't be covering this. I've read tons of books that are not very good, but you won't be seeing that on this channel, because I'm only going to be covering, you know, books that I, you know, got a lot of value from. You know, what you're seeing on the channel is going to be the top, maybe the top 10 to 15% of books that I've ever read. So I'm only going to bring you guys, you know, the best of the best stuff. Let me know if you guys have any comments, any confusions, you know, anything at all that you guys want to talk about this book, and drop it in the comments down below. Subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.